Okay. Hello, everybody. I hope that all of my hardware is working correctly. So if anyone gets in here and you can't hear me, give me a heads up. But I figured I was like actually planning on doing like going live for something else today, like working on a completely different case, like the case actually for Lindsay Clancy. I thought it would be really interesting to cover and stream, and I was like busier earlier today, so I was thinking of doing that. But then as I was like getting ready to do that, it came out that this article came out from Bryan Kohberger, and I it's like a pretty big deal, I think. And I just figured this would be even a better opportunity rather than, I mean, I still am thinking about streaming the Lindsay Clancy trial, but it's supposed to go for like 6 to 8 weeks. And I'm not sure how I feel about like doing it every single day, but this is definitely, I feel like, worthy of going live for what, this article just said. So, yeah, I think out of every case that I am interested in and have covered and like done research on, that the Idaho 4 case is by far the case that I know the most information about, and that I'm probably like the best, like well versed in it. So, and I was planning on definitely streaming the whole Idaho 4, uh, case last year, but then I think it was almost exactly a year ago today that Kohberger ended up going or like taking that plea deal and like not having the case go forward. They were going to start the case in like the beginning of August last year. And then it was just like a couple of weeks before they were supposed to start it. Kohberger decided to take a plea deal. And then ever since then, they have been slowly releasing, and by them, I mean like the state, the prosecution, just like the court system, they're slowly releasing all of these documents because they kept the entire case like sealed at the time that it was going on, like up before the trial was happening, because they were arguing that it was for like a bunch of different bullshit reasons, to be honest. They were like, well, I mean, some of it did benefit Kohberger and some of it benefited the prosecution, but um, it's like very rare that you have cases where they're sealed unless there's a minor involved. And so it just felt weird. And then to come and start seeing and finding out that there's all this. Hey, Dragon, how are you doing? Good to see you. Thanks for being here. I'm just talking about the Idaho 4 case and like the new information that just came out about it. So I thought that it would be interesting to read just that article and discuss and like go over parts that maybe I don't understand, or yeah, just kind of summarize and stuff. Yay, thank you. That's cute. I'm gonna put that up there. I'm glad you're here too. So yeah, so like last year then, well, yeah, I have like a bunch of opinions about the Idaho 4 case, but it was weird because it did seem like there was a lot of just shady stuff going on behind the scenes. And like I do have some videos that I made and some lives that I covered during certain hearings from the Idaho 4 case that was like probably 2, maybe even 3 years ago, because I thought I saw like a bunch of issues with their, first of all, their IGG claims and like what they used behind doors for that. I mean, it's like literally against the Constitution to do what they did. And they're just like, let's seal it. We don't want to give away the prosecution or state's like, you know, whatever sources because it might be like dangerous to them. And it's like, no, you're just finding a way to hide behind, like some bullshit. Like, I don't know, it's just them protecting each other so then they can not have to answer to certain questions, and it's not fair. And the same thing with Kohberger, like the whole time, none of it was fair. Like they kept saying like, no, you can't present this, no, you can't present that. Like I honestly, I haven't thought about it in like probably like 6 months or something, and so I'm not like remembering completely exactly like what I remember was thinking that it was like really effed up the way that this judge was like finding. So like I can't remember, was Hippler, it was Judge Hippler, and he was like a huge I did not like that guy at all, and I thought he made some horrible calls. Like, he was for sure skewed towards the prosecution, and then there was like a lot of really questionable stuff that this judge doesn't know anything about. So how is he able to make these like judgment calls when he doesn't understand what IgG is, you know? And also this new you know, whatever they have, it was like not evidence, but like, I don't know, what the thing that they can use where that other guy came and testified about location data on their cell phones, and he kind of broke off from the police department like a few years back and started his own independent company. And so the defense had hired him to be like, hey, can you look over this cell phone data that they're saying, like, place him in these spots and like what that actually means. And like they like made up the data. Like, I mean, I don't know, like there's like, I'm gonna have, maybe I should like rewatch that tonight and see what it said, because that was like a hearing that took place like 3 years ago or something. But I remember being like, no, like the fact that they can't produce this like file, that means that you're not showing your work. If you're not showing your work, you have to do it again and prove that you're going to come up with the same answer again. You can't keep just like being like, oh no, that was it, but we're not going to give you, like, what we're finding is different than what they're finding. And of course they like always take the side of the prosecutors. So I thought it was pretty shady. But anyway, so I will just pull up um the article. So it's like the New York Times article. They just like released it a couple of hours ago, and they said that they ended up interviewing. So it was the first time that Kohberger has ever talked to anyone, like given any interviews, and like really spoke out. Like the only thing I think we've ever heard him say, like since he's been arrested, was when he like pled guilty for the plea deal last year, and he hasn't said anything else. And I did feel like the way that when he took the plea deal, I was like, oh, I bet they're going to try to like argue against this. And like nothing had happened. And now it's been, I think it was like a year ago to the day yesterday that he signed the plea deal. So now it's super interesting that it's just like a day after a year that now he's being like, no, I'm going to fight this plea deal. And it sounded like in the article that I read, and so like, yeah, I read over this New York Times article, and he basically he's saying it's like nothing like legally has been filed yet, but what Kohberger is saying is that he has filed the paperwork to like rescind his plea deal for guilty. And he said that like he accepted the plea deal based off of like disinformation and like hidden, like, I don't know, like lies or something. So anyways, I figured it'd be good to just like review it's like a 6-page article, and then just kind of talk about what that says there. Oh wait, hold on. Is it this one? Okay. So it says the criminology. Okay, wait. I don't know about like when it comes to the copyright stuff. Like, I don't want to read word for word what the article says. So I think I'll just like read the paragraph and then summarize it. So, but you guys can see it on the screen here. So it says, the criminology student is seeking to abandon his guilty plea and obtain a trial, claiming he is innocent and was misled into confessing to the high-profile killings. So he wants a new trial, which, I mean, I feel like that makes sense. Like, everyone wanted a trial. I mean, you can't say that like both sides aren't interested in knowing more information about like what actually happened. Like, no one had to, he didn't have to like explain what happened during the crime. Like, nothing, like, there was no questions were answered at all, basically, with his plea deal. So it says, interview with the New York Times, Bryan Kohberger. Yeah, he's serving 4 life sentences, and he said he had filed a petition challenging his conviction, citing concerns about how the plea deal came together. So, and I'm like, I haven't actually found I guess it was like he wrote it out by hand and filed it, and I'm not sure if they've like actually published it to websites or not, but that would be really interesting to read over that. It says, okay, so this was a quote from Kohberger with the New York Times. He said, "My actual innocence is my truth, and the plea hinged on by false promises and blatant disinformation must be withdrawn." And he's reiterated in a phone call. So then he wrote in a statement to the New York Times. That's what he said in that statement. And he said on the phone, like confirming with the New York Times people, he said he had an absolute claim of innocence. And he always has. Besides that, like one instance where he said, yes, guilty to take the plea deal, except all he had to do was say yes or guilty. Like he had to say, he didn't have to explain anything else. So it's like, it's not like he actually was like, yes, I killed the 4 students and I stabbed them to death. And, you know, like he didn't, that's definitely not what happened. Okay, so it says, he hasn't granted an interview for anyone or made public comments, like since he was arrested. And they said he just declined to discuss any evidence or other specific details related to his innocence claim, which is kind of, that sucks. But I mean, hopefully in a trial, like we can see that maybe. And it says, and as well as specific concerns. Hello, good to see you. You're Mike, right? Okay, I know I'm like, or is it Matt? I'm sorry, I'm like so stupid, but I'm like called you Landon forever, but good to see you. And yeah, it's kind of exciting news, I think, for the Kohberger case is that Kohberger is trying like to take away his plea, saying that he was guilty, and then asking Mike. Okay, cool. Did I say that first? I think I said Mike first, right? Okay, cool. I have to trust myself. But anyways, yeah, so, and then he's asking for a new trial. So it's pretty exciting, I think. So I guess, here we go. It says, oh, he's also not going to talk about the specific concerns he had about the plea process. But I am curious, like, if anyone knows, let me know. But like, what happens now? Like, after, maybe I should ask my ChatGPT, like, what the steps are when it comes to doing what he's doing, like in Idaho. But okay, it says, so what the New York Times says is that it's rare for defendants to win post-conviction challenges. So conviction is when he said, yeah, I did this. And it says, which often receive or revolve around claims of newly discovered evidence or an ineffective assistance of counsel, which I think they talk about it later in the article, but I'm pretty sure that Kohberger is definitely like one of his like main arguments is saying that there was like ineffective use of counsel, and that his defense team didn't find like this evidence that was exonerating, and so they weren't able to effectively serve him, which is true. And I wonder, I mean, I like do wonder if Anne, what's her face? Oh my God, why am I forgetting her? No, Amy, no shit, what's her name? What's his defense's name? I like seriously have not thought about this case in like forever. Is it like Amy? Hold on, I'm gonna Google that real quick. But I wonder if she's like kind of advising him at all. But he is saying that he filed this completely himself. So, defense attorney. Damn it. What the fuck is her name? Come on. Okay, well, Brent Turby is the guy that came out with that book. Woman name. Oh, Ann Taylor. Okay, Ann Taylor, who I RESPECT, Ann Taylor for sure. And that's why I am curious if like what the actual like relationship is between the two of them. like behind closed doors, or well, it isn't really behind closed doors because like Kohberger doesn't make any statements, so he just doesn't say anything. But they also are saying revolving around claims of newly discovered evidence. So if it's like, oh, there was a new DNA match that was located that came out because of like advanced DNA training, like that happens a lot, I think, with like the innocence claims. But I think that Kohberger is going to also say that too, because like they like they've been releasing ever since he got that plea deal. Like they said, Hitler and the prosecution said that they would be slowly releasing the files that were like sealed during the whole case. And there is like pretty crazy stuff that's coming out in these things that they are releasing, and it's like information that the defense never had, were like the defense was never privy to. So that's going to be legal. So I think that that's what his argument is like, hey, if my defense didn't find out this information that they're releasing to the public now, like this is actual evidence that's coming from the state, and if this evidence is like showing that there's like way other alternatives behind what actually the prosecution was saying at the time, then yeah, that's ineffective use of counsel, and like he should get a new trial. I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense. Let me know if you guys have any opinions on that, or make a comment, like, you know, if you're watching later too, because I mean, this is just brand new information to me, and I haven't really ever known about a situation where someone like tried to take back their guilty plea. I don't think, or I mean, I'm sure that all the Innocence Project people do that, but I haven't really followed like any of those like super closely. But I guess the New York Times says that it's really rare for defendants to actually win post-conviction challenges. And there was something that part of his plea deal, part of Kohberger's plea deal last year was that he couldn't like take back. He couldn't challenge anything about this plea. But then at the time I was like, well, that's bullshit. That can't be possible because he was like wrongly forced into this plea deal. Like he didn't have like a fair, I guess, like chance to go to trial and like to state his case because of the way that the rulings that were made by Hitler and all of the like bullshit that the, like, you know, prosecution was putting them through. And like I feel like everyone was like, oh, they're just making stuff up, like they're just trying to like, you know, bring up any small thing to try to, you know, argue like for Kohberger. And I'm like, no, this is actually like legitimate problems that that's like pretty concerning. So I think, I mean, I do think that Kohberger has like a really good, like strong case, but then I'm wondering, like, I guess he asked for, after he just filed this today, he also asked for assistance of counsel. So, and I just like read a headline like a couple of weeks ago that said that like it's like almost been like already $5 million that has been spent on his defense, or like 5.5 million, which is a lot, you know. And people, that's like, everyone hates that. They're like, oh my God, like, why just throw him in like jail? Why does he get all these appeals? And it's like, well, if the state and the prosecution would have actually done a fair job about, you know, like actually participating in a fair trial, then this wouldn't be coming up. But everyone blames like the wrong people, in my opinion. But yeah, and then all right, so then they say Steve Goncalves, who is Kaylee, her dad, he declined to comment on Monday, saying he wanted to discuss the issue with his family. And also the Latah County Prosecutor's Office didn't immediately return a call seeking comment. And then the Idaho Attorney General, Raul Labrador, which I think it's like the old prosecutor that was, or the old Attorney General, like was he the Santa guy with like the beard and stuff? And I think I can't remember his name now either, but I think he retired like after this case was over. So this must be the new guy. And he released a statement saying his heart went out to the victim's family. noting they had already endured unimaginable loss and now must face today's deeply painful news, which is like, okay, that's a nice statement, and I do feel bad that the victims' families are having to go through this, but like, again, it's not Kohberger's fault. Like, he wasn't given a fair chance at this trial, so like, don't be like trying to guilt trip Kohberger. Like, talk to the state about this. I feel like everyone's pointing like fingers and like blame in the wrong direction. But yeah, the AG says, my office stands ready to do whatever is necessary to ensure justice is fully carried out, which that's a good statement to me, if that's true, because yeah, that's all anyone wants is like justice. So anyways, then it goes on to say, basically they're saying, explaining the crime, which we all know the crime. And let's see. Oh, yeah, this part. It says, Kohberger's arrest brought relief to the community, but also stoked further mystery and speculation, as investigators never identified a motive or any previous relationship with the victim, which it's like, yeah, that's like the huge problem with this whole case was like, there's so many unanswered questions that like just don't really make sense, especially after they're like releasing all of these documents that are now showing like some of the exact obvious, like opposite of like what they're claiming. But it's like they did this on purpose. They like released everything, like tons and tons of information, brand new to us, and all at once. And it's like, I mean, they are doing it in stages, but even in the stages that they do it, they're like releasing thousands and thousands of documents. So it's like super hard to keep up with all of that information, especially after it's already been a plea deal. Like, people really haven't been following along that much because you're like, well, shit, he's already in there, But obviously, Kohberger has been following along, and I know that like there's been a lot of people still online that had been discussing it. To be honest, I like kind of like gave up on the whole thing. Like, I was like, that's shitty, and I'm like really interested in that case, but it's just like gotten to be so deep and like so many documents that it almost feels like impossible to start sorting through. But that's what would be really cool, is if Kohberger was granted a new trial, then like we all together could go through these documents, which is what should have happened in the first place, especially since Kohberger, since the beginning, has always said that he's innocent, except that one day when he had to take the plea deal. And we all know like how plea deals go, and especially that's what's unfair about the death penalty too, is like that gives like a way unfair advantage, because it's like you think, well, if someone takes life without parole, well, at least you have your entire life to try to like argue this. If you get put on death row and you don't have unlimited time to argue this, because you're like on death row, you know what I mean? That's why it's not fair. And I feel like so many people take plea deals, especially when they're facing death row, because of that exact thing. They're like, well, fuck, I guess I should at least try to like give myself more opportunity to be able to like get a fair trial, because I'm not getting one right now. That's like, I mean, I for sure think that's what Kohberger and what happened with Kohberger last year. Sorry, went off on a little spiel there, but yeah, and again, like if anyone has thoughts about any of this stuff, like definitely say something. Okay, so here it says, in court, law enforcement officials outline the evidence against Mr. Kohberger. His DNA. Okay, this is like what I think is kind of bullshit. This part I read from the New York Times, and I'm like, these are all pretty broad claims, kind of like, but it says his DNA was found on a K-bar knife sheath that had been left next to two of the victims. Amazon records showed he had purchased a K-bar knife and sheath months prior. He drove a white Elantra, the type of car that investigators determined had been on surveillance video circling the crime scene and then speeding away from it. Mr. Kohberger's phone showed he was out that night and his phone was turned off at the time of the murders. And like, so all of those claims I feel like are not all completely true. I don't know if you guys like remember like what was going on like when they were claiming all that stuff, but like they basically showed that they changed the like years of an Elantra when it ended up being that his Elantra didn't fit with it. And it was like before they had said like without a doubt it is an Elantra like between these years, and then it's like, oh, never mind, actually it's like 2 years earlier too, because surprise, surprise, that's what Bryan Kohberger like owns. And like also when they said, that he, oh wait, shit, what? Oh yeah, it says, yeah, his DNA was found on a K-bar knife sheet. Well, not really. He had like touched DNA that was like on like a super small part, and there was a ton of other DNA that wasn't tested that was way, way stronger than his DNA. So, I mean, touch DNA is totally different than like straight up DNA. Like if you have someone's like blood or, you know, semen or something. But yeah, and then I don't really know Amazon records. I'm not sure. I haven't heard any like arguments about that. But and then and that's my cat Leela back there. But now she's deciding to not hang out back there, I guess. And then yeah, like Mr. Kohberger's phone showed he was out that night and his phone was turned off at the time of the murders, but I like don't think that they actually, I don't know. I feel like there's more details to that, and that like this is like they kind of generalized over that. And I do think with that information, the cell phone information, that the Idaho like state police and the Moscow police department, there were people that like falsified information about that. And that was something that I talked about in one of my like live stream videos from that hearing where it was like live hearing from like 2 or 3 years ago, and they were interviewing Brent Payne and the other cop whose name was like, I think it started with like an M. It was Brett Payne, and like I want to say Moscow, but I know it wasn't Moscow. Anyways, like I did live streams and like kind of gave my reactions at the time, and like tried to explain just how I was understanding how it was like not showing, like they had basically made up information, or they weren't like proving, they had proven nothing. They had basically just showed some bullshit numbers being like, this is true. It's like, no, you have to prove that, like where you got that information from. Like, and they can't, they like didn't, and they like kept asking for it. But again, all these judges have no idea. Like Judge was such like a, like I feel like he was such an airhead, and like, you know, Hitler is just, he was like just a dick. He was like he was a dick, and he was definitely not there to listen to the defense at all. He like hated Ann Taylor. Like you could tell that he just like did not like her. Okay, Benny says, how will this affect the lawsuit against UW? I don't think it will. I mean, like, yeah, I don't see, yeah, I don't think that they're related at all. I don't know much about the lawsuit against UW, but I'm pretty sure that they're trying to sue, like all of the families are trying to sue UW, saying that they should have known that they had like a serial killer or like, you know, crazy person on their hands. And because they didn't, it resulted in like a wrongful death of their children. Yeah, Hitler was super rude. Yeah, he was a dick. He was super, no, and he was like super biased against the defense. It was like so obvious. There were times where I was just like, oh my God, this is fucked up. Like, and people just are like, yeah, well, I mean, that happens a lot, you know, like, I'm like, no, wow, like, how does no one else see how messed up this is? This is super biased against the defense. Like, it's not fair. Like, how anyone that says our like justice system is fair, it's not true, you know. But anyways, yeah. So, but what I was gonna say with like if it would affect the UW case, like I don't see why him taking back. I mean, I don't think that the UW case is gonna go anywhere anyways, because it's like you can't like predict someone's behavior. Like, of course, no one can be like, oh, we for sure know that this person is gonna go like, you know, mass murder these 4 students. Like, no, like you can't really do that. You know, I mean, you can be like, yo, someone better like check on this guy. He's acting super weird lately or something. But like, still, you can't predict. I mean, no one would be like, yes, someone is going to like now murder 4 people. You know, like you could never, I don't think you could ever prove that. But we'll see what happens with that case. But I don't see why like anything with that's happening with this, because like this isn't going to change Well, I don't know. I guess I don't know how it's going to change stuff. Maybe I should, let me ask my ChatGPT real quick. Because it is like kind of, like, what does this mean? I think that probably I wonder which judge is going to review it, but I'm sure like a judge will have to like read it over and then decide whether or not they want to like grant it to him or not. And then if they say no, then Bryan can appeal that probably, and then it'll go up to different stages. Well, I don't know. Let me ask ChatGPT. With Kohberger's new thing, filing to take back this plea. What happens? No. Okay. Yeah. So, right. Go back to here. Kohberger declined to discuss the evidence against him in his call with the Times. He said, "The intention is for all of these questions to be investigated and answers appropriately in trial setting." So basically, he's like, "I'm not going to like say anything. I want to wait till a trial. Like, I don't want to put out information. Let's all wait until all of us can see this like information together. Like, hopefully they aren't going to try to steal this trial again, you know?" Okay, it says, Mr. Kohberger, who had court-appointed representation throughout the case, ending with his guilty plea, said he prepared the documentation to challenge the case on his own. So he's basically saying he did this by himself, which he's pretty smart. Like, I could see him doing that, but also it's like, if he can get help from like Ann Taylor or something, that would be nice too. Like, I do wonder if they've been working together over the last year, trying to figure out a way for him to like fight this whole plea thing, because it does feel like it's not fair, you know? Like, he did not get a fair chance to present his like the information in trial. Like, I don't know. So I do know, and it's bullshit. So but anyways, yeah, he said he is now requesting to have a lawyer appointed to help him going forward, which is also interesting to me. I'm like, I wonder if because you know, they can, if someone, well, I guess it's not a death row case anymore, but I mean, Idaho, I don't think has like a huge like I don't know, sample of people that can represent certain clients, just because this stuff hasn't really happened that much. You know, it's not like a ton of people that are there. Oh, thank you, Benny. I appreciate you. Bless, bless. Thank you. I'm so glad. Yeah, anyone that is not like subscribed, please subscribe. And punk rocker, hell yeah. I love that. Cool, you guys. That makes me feel better. I've been feeling like anxious about going live. Like today, I was gonna go live with the Lindsay Clancy trial, kind of talk about some of that. But when I saw this information about the Idaho 4 case, I was like, no, I like fucking need to go live and talk about this right now. So, yeah, it says, so yeah, I wonder if he is gonna get, you know, appointed Ann Taylor again to help him. Like, that would seem like a fair thing if she wants to do that, but maybe, or did she just desert him like when he pled guilty and she was like, peace out, you know? Okay, so then it says, in the handwritten filing made public, oh, it is made public. Okay, made public by court officials on Monday, Mr. Kohberger focused on a claim of ineffective legal counsel. So that was like before, earlier, the Times said that even though this doesn't usually get granted, like they don't usually find in the defense's like favor when this is filed, a lot of the times people focus on ineffective counsel and bringing up new evidence, that like new evidence that has come to light. And I like was saying, I think that there's both of those in this one, because I mean, it's almost like there was ineffective counsel. Like, if you didn't have all of the evidence that was like potentially exonerating for you, like if your defense wasn't successful in getting that information for you, then that in itself is like ineffective counsel. Like your counsel should be able to get all of the information, all of the evidence in your trial, especially one that is as big of a deal as this. Then he said, I heard he is not working with Anne. Maybe she did her part, but for the system, not for him. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, I always like do wonder about Ann Taylor. Like she seems like she's kind of a baddie, and I like do like her, and I think that she was, you know, going in the right direction a lot of times when she was representing him. Like I don't know, some of this well, that's why I probably wouldn't be a good lawyer, but some of the stuff that happened in like what Hitler would say to her and the way that things went down, I would have been like, no, fuck you. But yeah, I would have lost my shit probably. But also that's probably why I am not like, you know, a like district attorney or whatever she is. I don't know exactly. Well, she's like, was she part of the DA? I know that she for sure was. Oh wait, maybe she's part of the DA and then she switched over to be like the defense people. I don't know. Anyways, if anyone knows, let me know. Okay, so then it says okay, wait. All right, yeah, right here. He said his lawyers, hail, is that Satan? Okay, I've been following it and it's weird. I don't know if he's guilty or what, but there's some shady people and shady stuff going down with this case. 100%. That's how I feel too. I'm like, I don't know enough information to say that Kohberger for sure is not guilty, but I do have enough information to say that we are not getting like all of the information that's out there, and that there is for sure a lot of shady shit that's going on. That is just, I mean, there is just some weird shit, like weird shit. I don't know. I sound crazy like sometimes, but that's why like I went down some crazy like rabbit holes with this case, and then I don't know, I started getting a little over my head. I was like, oh my god, are people like following me and like gonna murder me? Like I started getting super paranoid, and then I was like, all right, I'm gonna take a step back from this. I'm gonna take like a breather and think about this. But like it is weird, some of the stuff that's coming up, like weird stuff. Maybe okay, maybe that's what I should do. Maybe I should do like a live every single day with the shit like starting from the very beginning that I was coming across, like once this happened and the weird shit that started happening where I was like, whoa, there is like no way that this can't be. Because there like one time, okay, this sounds really crazy. I really want to like her. I don't know though, too many twists and turns. Yeah, exactly. Like I feel like, I guess in my gut tells me with Ann Taylor that like she is ultimately like she wants to be like on the good side of things, but if she is doing shady stuff at this point, it's like because her family is like being threatened to be murdered by like the you know, Satanist. No, I'm just kidding, not the Satanist, but like the secret societies that they have for sure, and like all of these weird. I know it sounds weird, but it's like it is weird. So public defender who took on his case was repping Xana's mom, and I think, oh yeah, well yeah, that I like remember when that happened, and I think it was like, well, so they say, like I think Ann Taylor, it was Ann Taylor, and it was she. Actually, I kind of want to. I'm gonna like write that down to look further into that, because I mean, because they said they were like, no. This is what I heard. They were like, no, that's like she didn't really like Xana's mom wasn't really understanding what the situation was, and Ann Taylor, because she was like in charge of all of the public defenders in Idaho, her name just happened to be on the paperwork, and so when Xana's mom was like reading over it and saw Ann Taylor's name, she was like, what the fuck, isn't this like, and I think she was like talking to people, you know, in the media, and they were like, hey, that's weird, like you should say something, which, so I don't know, but that's what they said. Like I honestly, like you can't really believe like anything people say, you know what I mean? But it's the BK case made, yeah, I think the BK case made me super paranoid. But maybe, I mean, maybe not, maybe rightfully so. Like maybe I was being followed. I don't know. I mean, I've never been paranoid like that before. And it was like, there was just some weird stuff going on, like on my computer and stuff that was coming up that just seemed so freaking creepy. Like one time, okay, this sounds really weird. You guys are going to be like, what the hell? But I was like, for like months, I was just taking screenshots, like reading about different things, following like different kind of links, different places. And at one point I got directed to like this Chinese, like medical something. I was like reading a Chinese medical book. And because it's like also about a lot of DNA stuff and a lot of like just, I don't know, like some maybe like drone or alien things too. I know that sounds super insane, but and yeah, I know, right? No, I feel like Satanists are cool, but like maybe not Christchurch or something. But I don't know enough about that too. But I do know people that, were like supposedly kind of like tortured by them. And I think it is like another kind of like old boys club in a way, like where there's like older men that have power, like in all these systems, like Hitler and fucking the other DA Santa with the, no offense to like older white men, but it's just like, it's time for them all to retire. Like, and they can just get away with this bullshit stuff too. But, yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the, thing. I feel like I was going to say one thing, but no, I can't. And I can't remember. Oh no. What was I going to write down? Oh yeah. Look up Ann Taylor. Oh no, the story that I was going to tell you guys that was like really weird, and you guys are going to be like, I don't believe her, but maybe tonight I'll find the evidence of it and then like post it. But I was like, yeah, I'd gotten down this really weird like wormhole, and then there was like, and I had also been looking up, like reading a lot of articles about Bryan Kohberger and stuff. And then all of a sudden, like I have an iPhone, so I'm not supposed to really get, like pop-up ads or whatever. But all of a sudden, like a pop-up ad came up, and it was like Bryan Kohberger, like master. And it was like you could see everything, and it was like huge. It was so creepy. I was like, what the fuck? And I was like, dude, is like Bryan Kohberger involved in like prawn? But then I was like, no, I bet it's like someone fucking with me online. Like maybe someone is able to see like what I've been looking up or something. Like how would that happen? Like it was so weird, you guys. So I'm gonna look for that tonight too. But that was the most shocking one. But there were like a lot of other really weird, quinky dink things that I definitely was like keeping track of, like each day by day. So maybe like the next live, maybe I should just stick with the Idaho 4 case right now, because it is what really interests me. And I have a ton of information kind of like that I was actually thinking over like the last week. I was like, that really sucks. I spent so much time researching and going down these crazy, crazy rabbit holes and taking all these crazy notes and like doing a bunch of research and coming up with these theories, all for the Idaho 4 case. And I'm never going to be able to use any of that information that I gathered. But like now this makes me feel a little bit more, I guess, like excited, or like maybe it is worth it to just start going over my findings. But yeah, I know, right? Like it was super weird with and it was for sure Bryan Kohberger. Like, yeah, I don't know. It was weird. I have never seen. Okay, like I don't want to sound like whatever about like prawn, or that like I see a lot of it or whatever, but never have I seen any that they were able to like switch the face of someone that I had been like looking up a lot online. And I wasn't even looking up like Bryan Kohberger like that. I was just like reading articles like related to the Idaho 4 case. So, dudes, it was weird. I've heard the same like old boys club cult church. Yeah, Scott Green. Yeah, protecting Greek life, sitting in on the Idaho 4 meetings, definitely secrets. And exactly. And I feel like some of it might have to do one, like I know a lot of other people have like these theories that there was like drug trafficking involved, but I think that there is some sort of, yeah, definitely organized crime. And I think that there's a lot of human trafficking. And actually, I did find some really weird associations with this like information I'm talking to you guys about, like, with the weird pop up. But then also I started seeing stuff that was like, I'm positive it was people that were involved in like the sex trafficking for sure. And I feel like I was looking at certain just creepy sites, that not sites even. It was like profiles even, like on TikTok and stuff. Or they would be selling something and you go to like a different website and it was like maybe a way that you could order certain like preferences. I mean, it's weird. Like I feel like there is definitely a lot of human trafficking that goes on. And so I could see that having been a part of it, and just organized crime in general. I mean, maybe also drugs were involved, but yeah. So anyways, all right. So then it says, okay. He said his lawyers failed to disclose or review exculpatory evidence. So yeah, his lawyers failed to disclose or review exculpatory evidence. So that's exactly like what I'm saying. But I think it's not the defense's fault. I think it's like, because the state has been being shady, but he has to say, like, in order to be like, yeah, they were ineffective because they weren't able to stop these people from being shady and lying about all this stuff. And had made promises about what life in prison would look like. This is weird. This is a weird part to me. I'm like, what are you talking about? Okay, so it says he says, and had that his lawyers had made promises about what life in prison would look like, including details about visits and employment. These pledges, he said, had induced him to agree to the plea, which I'm really curious to hear what he's saying about that. I mean, that's kind of, to me, that's a little bit of a weak argument. Like, really, like, I mean, I guess, like, at least throw it in there, because they probably were like, okay, you're going to go in the general population, like, you'll be able to see your family, because before, I don't think he was, like, really getting many opportunities. Like, he was in solitary confinement, and I don't think he really got the chance to talk to many people, and wasn't constantly being watched and, like, seen by all these people. Maybe also access to lawyers or people like that. And now he's still back in like a maximum security setting. I think he's in solitary confinement too. So, I mean, that's shitty. That means that you're like literally in a cell for like 23 hours a day, like you shower every other day. I mean, like, just for like reminder, whatever, if people don't know, that I like have experienced doing like psychology in prisons, and like working with the mental health department, and a lot of the like assessments that go along with certain things in prison. But yeah, so I have a little background there. And but I think it's like a lot of bullshit, the psychology that happens in prisons now. But I'm just saying that I have that background to kind of know a little bit about what it looks like in there. So I can maybe see why he would have been like, no, if I was going to be in solitary confinement, if I knew I was going to be in solitary confinement for the rest of my life, like, I never would have actually agreed to this. I would have kept fighting. And also, if he had seen that evidence beforehand, then the exculpatory evidence, then he could have also been like, oh, wow, look at all this exculpatory evidence. This is totally worth taking to trial, because look at all this evidence that's exculpatory. You know what I mean? Mm. Good job. Good job, Mike. My boss made me mad, so I retired. Like, congratulations. That's like seriously like dreams. That would be like a life goal for me for sure. I like, your bosses can make your life such a living fucking hell. It's unbelievable. Like, I wish that they didn't have that people couldn't have that big of like an effect on me. But when you have like a shitty fucking supervisor or boss, they can literally like ruin your life. Unfortunately, I also had a supervisor that like legit ruined my life. Like, it was crazy how much this bitch ruined my life. But anyways, that's the story for a different day. And I know I'm sounding like a little bit crazy, but this is my life. So, oh, and about employment, I wonder, yeah, and if he's in a maximum security prison and is being kept in solitary confinement, he probably is not employed somewhere. And that would be frustrating as well. Like, I'm sure I mean, it's basically, can you imagine like sitting in a cell 23 hours a day all by yourself, like no contact with anyone? And like, I mean, it really does make a huge difference with you have a like routine. If you have a job, you're waking up at certain times, like even though it might be like folding balloons for 20 cents an hour, like you're still getting up and doing something different rather and like talking and interacting with other people, like even just energy exchanges, like so I could see also why that might be a part of the reason why he feels misled into taking the plea deal. Okay, so it says, after he was arrested in December 2022, Mr. Kohberger's initial lawyer said his client was eager to be exonerated. Yeah, exactly. I feel like he has always said that he's going to be exonerated. And I remember everyone being like, oh my God, that's so weird that he said exonerated and not just not guilty. That's like a big deal. Like, he's a like criminal like law student. He definitely knows the difference between exoneration, which doesn't necessarily mean that you're not guilty, and guilty. And I'm like, that's stretching it. Like this dude, honestly, I feel like Bryan Kohberger is on the Asperger spectrum, and I feel like all of a bunch of stuff that he has done has been way misinterpreted by people when it's actually just been kind of behaviors and symptoms of someone that is on the spectrum a little bit. So it doesn't feel fair. Like I have a lot of notes taken on that too. But yeah, I could see where his mental health, he would understand like how routine is important to him and how to like not go insane. And he knows how to stick up for himself too. Like he's smart, obviously. And I think has been able to be like, yo, there's some like injustices going on in this prison. Like, how is this legal? And I kind of think the same thing. I like wonder the same thing. Like, how is some of this stuff legal? Like, it isn't legal, actually. Okay, so it says, court-appointed lawyers spent more than 2 years challenging the evidence collected against Mr. Kohberger. That's the same shit that I was talking about before, where it was like, yeah, they were trying to fight against this evidence that was being presented. Like, for example, the evidence that was put forth by Brent Payne and by that other dude with the M name that made up like information from cell phone data, like AT&T data. And yeah, and so they did try to like challenge it, and same with the IgG stuff and also the car stuff. Like there's just so much stuff that they tried to challenge and it was never taken seriously, which is kind of like, what the hell? That's kind of crazy. I mean, it just seems like so unfair, but or like, do people not understand what this evidence is actually putting forth? They said only, so yeah, they challenged his court-appointed lawyer spent more than 2 years challenging the evidence collected against Mr. Kohberger, only for a surprise plea deal to come together a few weeks before trial was to begin, which I totally feel like it's because they knew that they were not able to get a fair trial and that he would probably be found guilty going to trial without the evidence that they know existed. And so might as well take this plea deal and work on trying to now revisit this information because we need someone else to look at this besides Judge Hippler. I mean, I honestly feel like that's what they did. Let me know if you guys think the same way or what, if anyone has opinions on that. Okay, so then it says he accepted responsibility for the murders at a July 2025 hearing, and he was not required to offer a motive, and he never has. And yeah, this part, the lack of a detailed confession outraged some of the victims' family members, and even President Trump, who had called on the judge to demand an explanation from Mr. Kohberger. I, for some reason, do not remember that. I don't know why how I got a thumbs up, but thank you anyone that sent that to me, or thank you computer if you did that yourself. And yeah, and then okay, wait. Yeah, that's pretty crazy that Trump said some shit and he was like yelling at Hitler and he was like, Hitler, make him give a confession, but that wasn't part of the plea deal. And then in court, the judge asked Mr. Kohberger, are you pleading guilty because you are guilty? And Mr. Kohberger said, yes. He later sat in silence at a sentencing hearing at which family members of the victims expressed their grief and anger. So what I remember about all of that, and I think I mentioned it earlier in this live too, is that, yeah, like I just mentioned, they figured out, or they decided apparently that the best route at this time would be to take a plea deal so he can continue to kind of fight against that. I don't know exactly what they talked about it, and I'd be really interested to hear what Ann Taylor or any of his defense team has like advised him on, if anything. But I think that this makes sense. And when he took a plea deal, I was like, okay, that makes sense that he took the plea deal so he could avoid the death penalty and then spend this time being able to like fight against this unfair stuff that's been going on in this trial. And the fact that he never was like, I don't think he ever said like, yes, I am guilty of killing those 4 people. Like, I think his only response was either yes or guilty, you know, like I think maybe he said guilty and then yes. But to me, like, it'd be easy to say that. Like, people are like, well, he said it. It's like, well, if you only have to say 2 words in order to not get put on death row, like I would say those 2 words too. It's not like he was sitting there making up like an hour-long story about what happened when he like murdered these people. Okay, and then it says, in the early morning hours, November 13th, blah blah blah, that was the night that happened. It talks about like what happened. This is interesting, they say, and this isn't accurate, or maybe they have information that we don't know about, but they say 2 surviving roommates were in a bedroom on the home's 1st floor, which that's not accurate. Like, Dylan started out on the 2nd floor, like the same floor that 2 of the victims were found. And then she like ran downstairs to the 1st floor after she saw a masked man, and then neither of them called the police for like another 8 hours. So that's a little different than just 2 of them were downstairs in a room, you know, but whatever. And then it says, one of them reported seeing a shadowy figure in the middle of the night and hearing a commotion, but the roommates did not seek help until later in the morning, saying they had not realized what had transpired. Oh, and this is like, they mentioned something with the, what's it called? The book called Broken Plea by Brent Turby, and he was hired by the defense to investigate, just do a crime scene analysis. And he came back basically saying like it was impossible for this crime to have only one perpetrator. Like there had to be 2 because of like certain like evidence that he found. And so they talk about him here too, because he has spoken out like on different, I think like YouTube channels and in his book, saying like, yeah, like I don't know, like Bryan Kohberger could have done, like maybe he did this, but there's a lot more to the story besides just that, you know. And then that's what other people are kind of like, oh, weird, like, you know, someone else is saying like that's interesting. So then they say one of the experts who worked on Mr. Kohberger's defense team had taken particular issue with the plea arrangement and the evidence. Brent Turby, a forensic scientist who analyzed the crime scene for the defense, argued that the crime was committed by multiple perpetrators, criticized how investigators documented evidence, and questioned why more testing was not done of a hair found with one of the victims. And like that was like, yeah, one hair that they talked about, but then I feel like there was also a shit ton of other DNA that wasn't processed either. And they took touch DNA and didn't take like actual DNA. So that's just super bizarre. I don't know if you mentioned that too, but it's definitely a thing. It says the lawyers who served as Mr. Kohberger's defense team have rebuked Mr. Turby. This is kind of strange too that they did this. It says, telling the Idaho Statesman that he is now speaking about topics that are still confidential, many of which are outside his areas of expertise. The lawyers did not immediately respond to a request for comment Monday. Mr. Turby's concerns were included in a book about the case, Broken Plea. And so I think that's also I just want to know more information behind the statement that his defense put out. And I'm like, actually, like, who was his defense that made that statement? Because Brent Turby just came out with this book, I think, like a couple months ago. And that's when the defense made a statement, but now they're saying that Bryan is seeking new defense or doesn't have defense. So that's kind of confusing. Okay, this is the last page. It said, Mr. Kohberger alluded to those issues in his statement, saying that unanswered questions. Oh, wait, I'm going to write that down too. I'm going to find the actual filing that he filed, the handwritten one. And then I'll go over that the next time I come on live too. And if anyone like has ideas or like opinions or thoughts on like what you'd like me to cover, like the kind of format that might be good going forward if I want to like present this information. I feel like, you know, maybe doing like lives a few times a week to present kind of, are you interested in hearing about the rabbit holes and like data and information and research that I have done and have gathered and organized on Bryan Kohberger, or are you more interested in me live streaming the Lindsay Clancy trial right now and like kind of forgetting about Kohberger again until stuff comes out? Like, just let me know what people think would be better for you. Okay, find the official filing. Go over. Okay, and okay, he says Mr. Kohberger alluded to those issues in his statement, saying that unanswered questions seem to multiply with each piece of discovery unsealed. That's the same shit that I was saying before, was that everything's been sealed, and now that they're unsealing these huge chunks of discovery that they had that the defense had never even seen, he's saying that new questions multiply. And I feel like a lot of other people are saying that too. Like, it's not just him. And I don't know exactly what the what Kaylee's family, what her like their opinions are on this. I think that they're annoyed with Kohberger, but I think that they also have said that they're interested in really hearing the truth about this too, you know. But then I think they are really more just like, no, he did it. We're not gonna like put more energy and time into this. But which is unfortunate, because if you actually follow the laws of what's going on in the case without someone like the media being so biased and saying like it's just they're bringing up bullshit or something, because I feel like that's the way it really was presented, is that, you know, Ann Taylor was just really like grasping at straws in order to try to get Kohberger off. But I don't think that that was truly the case. Like, for some reason, I really did feel that Ann Taylor was like looking at it and was like, wow, there is some significant evidence here that really like he did not do this, you know. So okay, and it says unanswered questions seem to multiply with each piece of discovery unsealed. He said he was okay that a new trial He said he was okay that a new trial would mean the prospect of a potential death penalty. Okay, that's significant too, because I know that at least the victim's family and a lot of people like just in the public really wanted to see him get the death penalty. And if he's willing to kind of like put that on the line, you know, that was what was supposed to happen a year ago. Like, he is just rescinding what his plea was last year, and like, let's just jump back to what we were going to do, which was have all the evidence come out in this trial. But it was evidence that he hasn't seen, you know what I mean? Okay. He said, why am I breaking my silence? Mr. Kohberger said Sunday in the interview from the Idaho Maximum Security Institution, just south of Boise. A lot went wrong in those plea discussions. I really do want that to be heard. I love that. Like, I'm super interested in that. Like, I wonder what that is referring to. A lot went wrong in those plea discussions. A lot went wrong. Well, I wonder if that could be talking about the plea discussions that he had with the judge and with the defense and with the prosecution. And the things that went wrong were when Hippler and when the defense or when the prosecution like were not actually putting forth information that was exculpatory evidence. Okay, so he wants it to be heard. I do too. it says they give a little background about how he was raised in Pennsylvania and that he had written online as a teenager that he felt no emotion and that he had wanted to unalive himself or had some ideation like that, and that he viewed himself as a sickly, tired, useless, and stupid man, which is sad. Like, obviously he was depressed, but I have a lot of notes on that too, and like some of the stuff that they found was connected to him. Oh, and I found some other weird stuff too connected to like definitions on Urban Dictionary that were like weird connected and stuff too. And that was also connected to some other like super bad, like, you know, incel type channels and thoughts and theories. It was weird. Okay, and then he later turned to heroin, friends said, but got sober and earned a master's degree, growing enthralled with learning about serial killers and the minds of killers, which, yeah, like all of us that are interested in this are also like wanting to know that. And that's cool that he got, you know, the master's in that. That was what my interest was too. Like, I wanted to get to know about like sex offenders and like the criminal mind, you know. And I got a master's and I was working on my doctorate too. So I feel like Kohberger and I might have a little bit in common. I do not have a history of being addicted to heroin, but I've had other, you know, addictions, I guess. So yeah, for sure. Not heroin though. Okay, it says in 2022, he moved to Pullman, Washington to enter the PhD program in criminal justice and criminology. We know that. He also applied for an internship with the local police department, which is also, I think, a way that he could have gotten like into the system a little bit, like for them to, like, if he ends a pansy, like for them to target him specifically. It says, but his term at the university was sullied after he clashed with the professor, and the university decided to fire him from a teaching assistant role, which I feel like that was mispresented too. Like, they didn't fire him until they like started hearing that he was being arrested for this, you know, but like you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. So they shouldn't have, you know, that doesn't really seem fair. But he, I think, stopped going to school by that time. But they were like, yeah, we fired him. But it was kind of like, no, I don't know if you did fire him by that time. And, you know, they say that he clashed with one of his professors, but it's like, I don't think I really did not like the way that they framed that. And I have some opinions about that too, because I've like listened to interviews like with the people that did testify about that. And I'm like, these people are like super shitty. Like, they seemed very just opinionated and judgmental, and like definitely had a way that they felt about awkward dudes. And I know that like everyone said that like he was like a super big misogynist, but I don't know. I feel like he might not have been. Like, he was like really into The Handmaid's Tale, and I think he like went to a couple of different speeches that the like Margaret Atwood, and she has some really interesting, like, she's for sure a feminist. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I don't know what Kohberger was, but I know he seemed to like respect his mom and sisters and stuff. So I don't know if I would call him like a huge misogynist, but also I think he's on the spectrum. So I could see why some people would interpret some of their interactions with him as him being a dick. But I don't know. I feel like that's just making assumptions and kind of generalizing people, you know. Anyways, okay. Oh yeah. So anyway, so that is all of that article. But I just, yeah, if anyone, oh wait, Jaden says, what I was wondering is the girls were young and pretty. Was there a sexual component to this? I think there was, like, yeah, I think that, well, like, yeah, I do kind of think there was. And, but I think it was like more based off of like rejection rather than um like sexual. But I don't know, like, I'm like, this is all alleged and stuff. I mean, it's totally like nothing has been proven. It, but I don't know, there seemed to be like a couple of like weird relationships. Like, I feel like there might have been some like um like gay relationships, I guess, or between certain people, like in the sorority, and I don't know, maybe Ethan, and like jealousy towards him. And I think that maybe some of the people that were involved too, like, had some history with Maddie and with Kaylee, and maybe were rejected by them. So, I mean, I can't say for sure, but like that definitely for sure has crossed my mind. And part of me almost like, I just wonder if like, I like want to get more information about like how their bodies were found and like hear in detail, like kind of what injuries they had, because I think it does matter. Like, I also feel like, they talk about like different weapons being used. And I think there was multiple weapons. And I don't know, for some reason, I just have this really strong feeling that the weapon that they used on Kaylee was a golf club, like the one that like knocked all of her teeth out and stuff. But I don't think that I mean, none of the victims, like no one has said that they were actually assaulted, but like sexually assaulted. But yeah, I do think that some of the motivation came from probably some, just feelings of like, yeah, jealousy and rage and yeah, stuff like that. But yeah. So yeah, let me know. I think I'm gonna like probably, I can't believe it's like not even 5, but I'm thinking about signing back on later and maybe trying to look over some of the real Espen donor. Yeah, no sexual assault and multiple weapons and multiple probes. I completely agree with that. Real Espen donor, I see your pictures like of a bald eagle, and like I don't know if you follow Jackie and Shadow, but like if you've heard about what happened to like Jackie in like the last week, it's like, let's all take a moment of silence and send strength and healing to Jackie and also to Shadow and the children, Luna and Sandy. I think super sad, but I guess that's nature for you. But yeah, anyways, maybe I'll plan on also going live tomorrow and just checking in with other stuff that maybe I came up with tonight, because I also like have been following the David stuff that's come out, and I was wanting to maybe just go over some of the notes that I've been taking about new information that has come out in that trial, because I have spent a lot of time kind of researching the David case too, and I have some like, I guess, opinions about him. I mean, I think it's really similar, but yeah. Oh, your friend took that picture. But yeah, Jackie and Shadow, I hope she makes a full recovery too. Thanks. Yeah, thank you all. Yeah, you guys have a good night too. And thanks for being here. Seriously, I really appreciate you all. And yeah, I'll check back in with you guys. Like, yeah, hopefully tomorrow. And I'm like really gonna be better this time about like following through. I know I say that every time, but it's like a genuine, like, I'm like saying it with full intentions of doing so. So, but yes, bless all of you, love and peace. And yeah, I'm interested to see how things go. But okay, I don't know if you guys see the balloons, but okay, bye.